Good morning, everyone. The There will be a slight change in the topic as because for various reasons, Dr. is not in a position to take class tomorrow morning, so I will be taking and we'll be dealing with the throat also because we have covered many diseases, many parts of the nose, and almost half of the year is over. All essential diseases of the oral cavity because we cannot go into the larynx bypassing the oral cavity. So non-neoplastic disease of the oral cavity will include all the diseases of the teeth, gums, mandible, the soft tissues, and the what do we say, the mucosal layer of the this thing, and essentially it will be non-neoplastic diseases. So let us hope we can cover it as early as possible. With respect to my teachers, let us begin the today's class. What are we going to deal? One, we have the hard tissues and the soft ones. Hard tissues will be dealing with the diseases of the teeth, the periodontal diseases, the diseases of the bone, temporomandibular joint, cleft lip, and palate because they also constitute the basic framework, skeletal framework of the oral cavity. And the soft tissue diseases will be divided into the ones which are having, that is pigmentation related, that is red patches or white patches, and ulcerations of the oral cavity, swellings in the oral cavity. All this will be dealt in detail. They will be either a 2 marks question or a 4 marks question. Dental part may or may not be much of importance, but cleft lip and palate will be important not just in ENT, it will also be important for you in general surgery also. So let us see what we are having. The most common thing is the caries tooth. Why do we have caries tooth? Because examination of the oral cavity begins from lips and goes on to mention, identify the tooth which are affected because the dental caries can mimic sinusitis. Dental caries can be the cause for something like Ludwig's angina. Dental caries can be the cause for something like a basal cell carcinoma appearance. Dental caries can be the cause for a submental fistula. There have been cases wherein people have thought this is a submental abscess, drained it 4 to 5 times without looking into the oral cavity. This is the truth. So, observing for dental caries is very important. Why does caries occur? Caries occur because of the loss of enamel. Why would there be a loss of enamel? Because the bacteria are acted upon, the bacteria will be in conjunction with the use of the fizzy drinks or the carbonated drinks or too much of sugars. They come in contact and they start dissolving the enamel. The moment enamel is dissolved, the pulp is infected. And at the same time, majority of us, we don't know how to maintain our dental hygiene. So this also contributes in one of the factors. So that's why dental caries is one of the major reasons. Apart from this, the only thing which protects the dental caries naturally is the saliva. Now, saliva can be decreased because of various diseases like Sjogren's syndrome, or because of radiotherapy to the oral cavity, we will be having a decrease in the salivation, or at times because of the use of drugs like diuretics. So we have decreased saliva production, because of which the caries is inevitable, essentially streptococci and lactobacilli. Now this in turn will be the cause for headache, which will be taken as sinusitis. This may again predispose for orodental fistula if the dental caries is occurring in the molar, the maxillary teeth. So that's why every time we have a disease, we before we look into the pharynx, please examine the teeth. Is it only the teeth which are responsible? No, not just the teeth, the tetracycline. Why? Because anytime we give tetracycline less than 12 years of age, this may be leading to the staining of the teeth. Can you, if you can make out, the upper half appears normal, but lower half looks bluish. So please be careful why you're having all this. Then, apart from this, because of bad oral hygiene, we have something like which is called as a periodontal disease. That is, around the teeth, we are having pulp. This, the gums, which gingivae, which will help us in between the teeth and the gingivae, there will be at times development of or stasis of the secretions or the food particles, which will lead to bacterial growth. This in turn will lead to plaque formation. The more the plaque formation, what will happen is the tooth and the gums, they start developing plaque, wherein this plaque will cause loosening of the tooth. The ligament becomes loose or decayed. This in turn will lead to loss of teeth. That is why we should be in a position to identify whether it is just a localized periodontal disease, that is a gingivitis, or it is a gingivitis because of leukemia. Why? Because leukemia very commonly will give rise to mucosal lesions, and in the mucosal lesions, these gingivae, they become swollen, and that's why we have ulceration, recurrent petechiae, fungal infection, which will, and bleeding. This will in turn be more devastating to the patient than the actual disease. Apart from this, we have something like acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, wherein this is because of uh, anaerobic bacteria, which will cause the necrosis of the gingiva, which will lead to halitosis, pain, bleeding, and at times will be confused with leukemia. But for thankfully, for all practical purposes, all these diseases are dealt by our dental colleagues. That's why we don't really bother, but you should be in a position to identify something which is not at least ENT. You should be in a position to at least refer to the concerned doctor, because every single time we have anything like this, we don't know how severe or how bad it is going to be. That's why a very keen observation for the diseases of the gums and the teeth is important. At times, there will be something what is called as a palatal tori. That is, there will be a painless growth of the bone. These are what are called as exostosis. Exostosis is very common in ear, but the same thing when it happens in the oral cavity is called as a tori. That is, any swelling is called as a tori. That is, tors tubaris is a swelling, but here it is bony. This is what is torus palati on the palate, while we also have on the mandible, which are called as torus linguae. This will be majority of the times painless, but if at all because of the vigorous brushing, they may ulcerate and may lead to painful ulcerations. Normally, they don't require any treatment unless the patient is very much concerned. Then you may have impacted tooth, which will be horizontally placed or anteriorly placed rather than superiorly placed. And at the same time, we may also have cystic diseases in the jaw, which will lead to swelling, at times mandible fractures. This is what we are supposed to think of is always, especially for ENT people, is fibrous dysplasia. This is one of the diseases wherein we have unilateral involvement of the maxilla or the skull bones with disfigurement of the teeth. Please note, this is what is called as an orthopantogram. This sinus is completely obliterated as compared to the opposite side. That is essentially a different disease, fibrous dysplasia. It is either monoostotic, polyostotic. If it is polyostotic, then we have to exclude Albright's syndrome. That is, it is associated with skin pigmentation and endocrine disorders. Then, coming to the diseases of the temporomandibular joint, temporomandibular joint usually will be limited to one, a temporomandibular joint arthralgia. Second is going to be a lockjaw. Lockjaw is very common, especially when we open our mouth beyond its resting capacity, wherein the jaw will not be able to occlude. This will sort of present, this is something like the shoulder dislocation. Once a shoulder dislocation has started, it will be a recurring feature. Same thing if there is a jaw dislocation for once, please take it for granted that he will have it multiple times. At times, even the patients will be so used to it, they will remanipulate the whole thing into normal position by themselves. This is what is done in emergency. What we do is the physician stands in front of the patient is sitting, and we will be using a gloved finger using both the thumbs on the molars of the patient and pull the jaw downwards and forwards, that is towards us. So what will happen is this will cause the joint to extend from the glenoid cavity into the temporomandibular cavity. Apart from this, temporomandibular joint arthralgia, usually because of stress or because of improper chewing habits, that is chewing only on one side, because of dental caries or because of habit, will mimic the headache, unilateral headache. This is the most common cause for headache. Sinuses, migraine and all that would be less than 20% of the times. Temporomandibular joint arthralgia is one of the most common cause of unilateral headache. How do we identify it? Whenever there is a moment a patient has got pain on opening the mouth or chewing, and there will be tenderness in the muscles of mastication. The only two muscles which we can identify is the masseter and the temporalis muscle, which will be tender. Why? Because all this come and attach to the joint. That's why temporomandibular joint. How do we treat it? It's simple analgesics and strict uh, soft diet for next 15 days. 99% of the times this will be resolved. Then we come to cleft lip and cleft palate. Cleft lip usually unilateral 90% of the times, very rarely bilateral. Cleft palate will be majority of the times seen in associated with, may or may not be associated with the cleft lip. The the whole initial, I mean the whole cleft lip or the palate may be of varying degrees. That is, you will just see a bifidula to very much significant this thing to a submucous soft palate. That is, you will have mucosa, but there will not be any bone underneath. This in turn will cause problem with eustachian tube. Why? Because the soft palate receives will cause palatal aponeurosis in the soft palate. So if there is no aponeurosis, what will happen is the muscle levator palati or the tensor palati will not be contracting adequately or optimally. This will in turn lead to eustachian tube block and cause ASOM or CSOM. This will be dealt with in detail in surgery. The surgical usually the cleft palate is treated as early as possible. As far as I remember, it is going to be 3 months, whereas the, the palate is going to be anytime from 6 months to 12 months. The varying degrees are available, which will be in turn dependent on the this will be taught in detail by the surgical people. From our side, we just deal with the in and some people do more funny things. Now let us come to the soft tissue patches. Now we record things like whether the mucosa is either red or is it white, or it has got different things like swellings or ulcerations, or there are pigmentation in this. So why does it cause red? Red patches. Red patches can be either because of inflammatory regions, that is something like radiation mucositis, or because of trauma, or because of platelet disorders, something like purpura, or they can be because of vascular causes. But majority of the times, erythroplakia is what is the most common thing for red patches. Why does it? Why is it important? Because erythroplakia has got an 80% chance of converting into malignancy. That's why our job is the moment we see anything red, you are supposed to remember this is because of first erythroplakia, then everything else. But any localized disease, and it will be diffuse all over the cheek mucosa, any localized disease, you have to first rule out a hemangioma also. Why? Because you try to excise a hemangioma and the bleeding doesn't stop, you will unnecessarily be dealing with a catastrophe because the patient is not yet intubated. So the first things what we need to be always identifying is whether it is malignancy or has a malignant potential, or is it something very benign. So biopsy is necessary. Lichen planus or pemphigus vulgaris or erythema multiforme, these are the skin disorders which occur in the oral cavity. So whenever you are not able to treat the mucosal red patches, always send it to the dermatologist, because they will also be dealing with the other systemic involvement of the red patches, and then accordingly the treatment will be given. The reason why I would be stressing on the erythroplakia is, you need to remember a small analogy, that is, why does it cause redness? Because like the skin, even the mucosa is composed of multiple layers. Below these layers are the blood vessels. Supposing you are abusing the mucosa because of tobacco or smoking, what will the body do? It will try to heal itself. That is, it will try to generate more and more layers. The more and more layer generation will lead to keratin formation. This is why you will have white color patches, that is leukoplakia, which is in a way better, because the body is giving a reaction. Now, in erythroplakia, the body has stopped giving reaction. That is, I keep scolding you, you feel angry, that's a normal reaction. But if I scold you and you don't give a reaction, that is where the things are turning very ugly. That's why if you are given a choice between erythroplakia and leukoplakia, choose leukoplakia, because the malignant transformation is less as compared to erythroplakia. But equal, both are pre-malignant lesions of the oral cavity. This is what we need to really remember. Apart from this, there's something what is called as a pyogenic granuloma. The erythroplakia usually is on the cheek mucosa, but depending on the uh, abuse where it is occurring, you may also find it on the tongue. And this is what is called as the lichen planus, wherein you will be having striae. Apart from that, striations, reticular pattern, or there will also be something like a papillar uh, pattern or plate-like pattern. But these are not necessary for us. We just need to identify whether it is in our disease or not. Apart from that, pyogenic granuloma is because usually seen in case of a pregnant lady. Why? Because it is the gingival hyperreaction to the plague bacteria, and this can be confused with the malignancy. Hence, always biopsy and histopathological examination is to be done. This is what is about the red patches. White patches again will be most commonly because of leukoplakia, but other things are also very important. Something like leukemia or candidal infection, human papilloma virus infections, lichen planus, aspirin can cause white color patches on the cheek mucosa, and because of repeated trauma. So all these things we need to remember. Leukoplakia has got a chance of 5% of malignant transformation. Erythroplakia has got 80% chance of malignant transformation. So apart from this, candidal infections, we can see curdy white precipitates all over the palate and the tongue. It may go in as far as the larynx also. Now, why do we have it? Most of the times it is because of the immunocompromised host, usually seen in cases of diabetics or HIV infections or bedridden patients with bad oral hygiene, wherein we have the fungal overgrowth. Simple treatment with uh, voriconazole or fluconazole treatment will be more than enough. Apart from this, we also have pigmented lesions. Now, these pigmented lesions, the only thing what we need to really remember is we have to rule out a malignant melanoma. This is the only thing we have to identify. Why? Because these are small nevi. That's it. But if we have something like this, doesn't matter. But Kaposi sarcoma in cases of HIV and malignant melanoma, the look itself should be giving you a red flag sign that something is not very much right. Majority of the times we won't be seeing this, but for our sake, non-neoplastic lesions and neoplastic lesions will all be important. We need to identify them. Usually ulcerations are very common findings which are there for almost every one of us. They are minor ulcers and major ulcers, and the last would be a recurrent ulcer. What is the difference? Minor ulcers are less than 5 millimeters in diameter, 3 to 5 millimeters in diameter, whereas major ulcers are more than 1 centimeter in diameter. Usually because of uh, uh, nutritional deficiencies. Apart from that, they will also be because of the medications what we use, that is uh, the analgesics or steroids or even antibiotics will cause aphthous ulcerations, and at times even blood disorders can cause aphthous ulcerations. So the treatment is usually because with uh, something like bacillus, lactobacillus, porolac, vitamin C, and riboflavin. Majority of the times, this is enough. Same site ulcer, recurrent ulcer, is a danger sign. We have to rule out malignancy or a sharp tooth. Induration will give rise to whether there will be felt, and this will be helping us in identifying whether there is malignancy or not. Apart from that, because of multiple cheek bites, we have something what is called as a mucus retention cysts. These are very small mucus filled glands, I mean swellings, and they're definitely not malignant potential. Only excision is the answer. At times, these swellings are may extend into the nasoalveolar region. These are what are called as a nasoalveolar cyst. At times, will also be nasolabial cyst. Apart from the cysts, we will be also be dealing with ranula, that is blocked sublingual gland. So this will in turn lead to the gland producing the saliva but not able to secrete. So what will it do? It will start increasing in size. This is one of the most common features for brilliantly translucent swelling in the midline, usually because of ranula. The ranula again are of simple ranula or plunging ranula. Plunging ranula is because it divides the mylohyoid muscle and comes into the submental region. These are very difficult to operate because one part is in the oral cavity and one part is in the submental space. So majority of the times we just excise it. Marsupialization is the treatment of choice. This is what is a MRI finding of a plunging granula. It is going through the mylohyoid muscle into the submental space. And tongue tie is what we have seen. People attribute this to loss of speech. But please remember, tongue tie will never cause loss of speech. It will cause in difficulty in articulation. Previously, they used to operate left, right, and center. But the only thing, simple test, what we can do is, if the tongue is able to protrude beyond the upper incisors, there is no need for the tip of the tongue. It should be able to be protrude beyond the upper incisors. Only then it will not hamper with the articulation. Otherwise, if at all there is this thing, then the words like per, mer will be in a l, will not be able to pronounce properly. That is when we need to do a surgical excision of the tongue tie.